What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Variant the Podcast. Today, we have something very exciting to talk about to kick the news off with. That's MCU news.
Yes.
We've all been looking forward to the new Disney Plus MCU shows. We got Loki, Winter Soldier, and Falcon, and then, of course, WandaVision, which is all. I think they're all coming out this year, right? All three of them?
I think two of them come out this year. One comes out next year.
WandaVision comes out this year, and Falcon.
Well, it's Winter Soldier and Falcon first, or Falcon and Winter Soldier is the name, right?
Yeah.
Then we're getting Wanda and Vision this year, which was actually a surprise because that got bumped up.
They moved it up.
And then Loki, I believe, is next year.
All right, so we're getting two out of the three.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. The one I'm most excited for, though, is WandaVision, because we got a 30-second Superbowl spot. But there's actually a lot to pull from that 30 seconds, because they briefly went through all three of the shows we just mentioned. And the WandaVision one, we got our first look at all three of them. But WandaVision, it just looks the most unique out of all of them.
Exactly.
It's like very original in the sense where we've heard before that it's going to take place like in a sitcom, right?
Yeah.
But it's like different sitcoms. You got like a black and white one that looks like I Love Lucy. You got one that looks like she's in a Brady Bunch setting. One that
like a 90s Growing Pains.
Right. And it's just kind of fascinating to see, like, how is this all going to work? Is this all in her head? How is this all happening? So I'm very, very curious. But some of the coolest Easter eggs from WandaVision, I thought, well, two of the big ones is, one, we see her in her classic outfit,
right?
Which I've been wanting to see for a long, long time now. I know a lot of people have been like, but it looks kind of cheesy, like a Party City costume. And I think that's because it's probably within a vision she's having. I don't think it's meant to be like her actual costume she's going to fight in. It's more of just like a tip of the hat to us OG comic fans to be like, look, there it is for like the 2 minutes or whatever it's going to be on screen. So that was really cool. But one bigger than that's probably going to have big, ripples through the MCU, I would imagine at least, is the sneak peek we got of Wanda and Vision's twins. We see she's pregnant in it, and we see there's a crib sequence where the two twins are throwing their pacifiers up in one of the scenes real quick, and that's, saying, hey, we're introducing their kids to the MCU, which is Wiccan, who he's from the Young Avengers, and then also Speed, they're both from the Young Avengers.
Right.
So that's really, really interesting, as there's also been rumors that we're going to get a Young Avengers movie.
Exactly right.
So I think that's, gonna be for bigger picture stuff right there, which is crazy too, because Wiccan is crazy. He was originally called Asgardian, but he later got renamed to Wiccan. But he has like reality warping powers, like his mom, Wanda. And then Speed is really cool because he's a speedster. That's why his name is Speed. He basically gets his powers from his uncle's, like, I guess, genes.
Right.
So I'm very curious to see where those two, that alone has, I'm like, oh, so they are probably going to go for this young Avengers thing. Because I don't think you're going to introduce them just to like be like, that's it, we're done.
Yeah, the interesting thing about WandaVision for me is that we still don't know in what context the show is going to live. Yeah. So in other words, we don't know, because Vision is dead in the main MCU. Mm-hmm. So we don't know. We know that this is all in continuity with the MCU, but we don't know if this is all some kind of a vision that she's having. It's some kind of it's in her head,
right?
Or if it's real, or some combination of the two. Or are they bringing Vision back somehow, or are they going to use this as some kind of a medium to bring Vision back? The thing that I immediately thought, especially with the kids, the twins, was, are they going to make it to where she's pregnant from previous encounters, her previous relationship with Vision before he died? This is going to immediately follow that timeline, and then she's going to turn out to be pregnant,
right,
with the twins, and that is what kind of triggers all of these, fantasies or hallucinations or whatever, and it kind of goes from there. But like you said, the thing I'm definitely most excited for that of the three, because it's so different.
For sure.
It's easily the most unique thing that the MCU has put out. And it has a little bit of like tonally, it almost has like a little bit of Thor Ragnarok, just that kind of like comedy element to it. Not in the sense of like the style, because it's not the same, but I mean in the sense of how different of a direction they went with it. Like Thor Ragnarok was just so different in its approach.
It's giving me like Pleasantville vibes.
Yeah, totally.
I feel like definitely kind of like that. And like you said, going back to the kids, I'm very curious to see, because I know a lot of people are probably thinking like, wait, he's an android. How's he gonna get her pregnant? Well, in the comics, it's like basically constructs of her mind.
Right.
You know what I mean? She can warp reality. Okay, comics. So
right.
she makes kids. So I'm curious, like you said, if this is just gonna be something in her vision, WandaVision, or it's gonna come to fruition. I would imagine since Young Avengers, they would be here to stay.
That was my thought too.
But I don't know.
I would definitely. That's why I say I that would be my guess, because they're definitely moving in the Young Avengers direction. There's no way that's all a coincidence.
Because the Hawkeye series too.
Yeah, what they're doing with Kate Bishop. You've got the twins, and there was one other one that was also a direct hint at Young Avengers.
Hank Pym's daughter.
Yes, Hank Pym's daughter.
No, Scott Lang. Scott Lang's daughter. Not
right.
Hank Pym. Yeah,
yes. Yeah. Oh, and the Captain Marvel's.
Not Riri Williams. That's
no, yeah.
Monica Rambeau.
Yes, thank you, Monica Rambeau. Them introducing Monica Rambeau. So it's like all of these different pieces. That's not an accident. That's definitely on purpose, and they're thinking to the future, which makes all the sense in the world and is extraordinarily Kevin Feige.
For sure. Yeah. It's just crazy within 30 seconds. That's only like one show out of the 3 that there's already like that many kind of like little teases going out, because another big one was Loki. He got the least amount of footage in the clip, but it was enough to get people, talking, because if you notice what he's wearing on his shirt or, suit, whatever getup he's wearing, there's a TVA on there. And if anyone reads Marvel Comics and, knows a lot about the lore, TVA stands for Time Variance Authority. And they're basically just like the cops or governors of like the multiverse and in charge of keeping all the timelines and everything intact.
Right.
So, but that's really cool because as we know, the timelines got all messed up and jumbled with, Endgame, and now we don't know what's happening with WandaVision and how that's going to play, because that's going to tie into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Right.
So, that's all timelines and this weird thing. So it's like, what's happening? It's about to get really comic book with all the timelines and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then you insert whatever they're going to do with the Eternals.
Yes.
Right? And you've got some really deep roots comic book stuff coming with the MCU.
They definitely opened up a can of worms with the time travel.
There's no doubt. And that was intentional.
Yeah.
They were trying to break the thing wide open because they knew they had to move on from this Avengers run. Mm-hmm. And so super smart on their part, because it just created so many new possibilities and directions that they could go.
For sure.
They created basically avenues that they can travel down, but they don't have to necessarily. Mm-hmm. So they just gave themselves a whole bunch of new options. And with the Loki series, the one thing that everyone was pointing out too was how they changed the design, the look of the logo.
Oh, did they? I didn't notice that.
Yeah, did they see that? They changed the eye particularly. And everyone was wondering what that's going to be about and why they specifically did that, because they emphasize the eye in Loki.
Curious.
Yeah.
That is curious.
So I'm very curious to see how that plays out.
Falcon Winter Soldier also looks good.
Yeah. It was like kind of hard, because you were like, I was hoping, because when it started, it looked like a trailer for Falcon Winter Soldier.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah. And then it just turned into that very quick montage.
It kind of gives me like Mission Impossible vibes a bit.
Totally.
Whatever, what they showed with the squirrel suits and stuff like that. I'm like, that's Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is in one of those squirrel suits. You
know what I couldn't help but think of? I thought of Lethal Weapon.
That works too.
At first. Yeah. For some reason. I was like, dude, that's kind of like an updated Lethal Weapon almost.
Well, it's going to have that buddy cop, because that's the reason why these two got a show together, because their chemistry and banter back and forth in the Captain America movies and Avenger movies was so great. Yeah. Like, even though it was just a little, like when they were fighting Spider-Man in Civil War, that's one of my favorite like banters back and forth in all of the MCU. So I'm really excited to see what they do or what they have to do in this show. And Baron Zemo, he's finally getting his mask.
Yes.
Like, that was cool in the trailer too, where you see Bucky holding the gun to his head, but like dropping all the bullets. So it's like, he's not going to do it. But what's also crazy is you got to remember that Baron Zemo has the code still to turn Bucky evil. Although by now you would imagine,
that's cleared out.
It's cleared out with Wakanda and Black Panther, fixing him and all that stuff when Rogers brought him to him. But you could bring that in place somehow, or maybe he could try to like get him brainwashed again. I don't know.
Possibly.
Anything's possible, yeah.
I just love the fact that they found a way to get Work Baron Zemo back in.
Mm-hmm.
And it really makes me go, like, when they did Civil War, it really makes me wonder, like, did they know already way back then that they were going to go this direction?
Feige,
or was
possibly.
it just, the whole, no, let's leave him alive. Let's not kill him off because we're going to work him in at some point, or we want to. And it just worked out perfectly.
Yeah. Well, another thing I don't know if you put much thought into it, but do you think we're going to get cameos from other MCU characters?
I think we have to.
You think like Doctor Strange, because he's they've said it, Feige said it, he's very important. Like it's like WandaVision's going to tie directly into
right.
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Right.
So are we going to get Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange in an episode or two? Are we going to get Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther in Falcon and Winter Soldier? Because that would all cross over like flawlessly.
Yeah. Well, I again, because all of this is going to tie in directly to the MCU, I would imagine that we are going to have some cameos because these are directly leading into several of the films, like you just said.
That's going to be really fun to spot.
So fun.
Like, oh my God, it's Robert Downey Jr. He's
random,
back.
Yeah, just random appearances.
Yeah.
The one that I'm really curious to see if we get is Chris Evans as Captain America. Because
like old Captain America?
Well, just because he went back in time. And I'm wondering, are we going to, like with Loki specifically, we see him take the Tesseract and he goes, what's Loki going to be doing? Is he's bouncing around the multiverse? And is, now, especially now that we see him with the TVA, shirt on and everything like that, it's like, okay, well, how's that going to come to play? Is he messing with timelines?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or does he go to an alternate universe and he winds up realizing, hey, there's multiple things going on here, and he starts trying to leverage that somehow, and we get Cap pop up somewhere along the line.
For sure. I'd imagine his show would have to start off like right in Endgame, remember, when he gets the Tesseract and he disappears.
I mean, that was clearly what it was for.
Yeah, so, but that's just going to be crazy to see, like, Endgame, these billion-dollar movies, like now just for the first time being viewed on your TV in your living room. Like, not like it's in theaters for like, 4 months and then you get it on Blu-ray or digital. Like, no, this is how it's premiering. That's like never really been done before.
No, not like this.
That's very interesting. I don't know. I wonder if since it's still Disney, I wonder if Star Wars is going to do that eventually and vice versa. Because they're doing several Star Wars TV shows. So eventually they're going to have one link directly to an upcoming movie.
Well, there's definitely rumblings now. Now you're getting all of these rumblings, like leaks coming out of Lucasfilm because of what's going on, especially now with the delay of Obi-Wan. Right now,
which Ewan McGregor is saying it's not.
Yeah, there's conflicting reports. However, there's people that have been reporting that were part of the crew saying that they were told to leave set, that things were suspended indefinitely.
That's crazy.
So, regardless, there's definitely some kind of, because even Ewan McGregor confirmed, like, it is a delay, but it's not as big a deal as everybody, was making out. But you see what's going on, and you're hearing like a lot of conflicting information from Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy, from this delay on, and for me, it's clearly there's politics going on behind the scenes. We've been hearing, you and I, for a while now from several different people, from several different sources, that there is kind of an internal struggle at Lucasfilm of two camps, those that want to go in the direction that Kathleen Kennedy kind of envisions, and then there's another camp that wants to go in a different direction, kind of more old school, OG Star Wars, and keep more close to the original canon.
It's kind of funny to see like the not funny, I guess that's the wrong word, but it's interesting rather to see the struggles in different departments where like seems like Feige is doing what he wants to do with Marvel. It's not really there's not much friction with him and Iger there, because Iger oversees everything, right? He's like daddy, so he's overseeing everything.
He's the boss.
But Feige's running the Marvel department and Kathleen Kennedy is running Star Wars, but there's a lot more friction on the Star Wars end when they're like, that's like two of Disney's biggest giants right now.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to see one like with creatively struggling and the other one be like, nope, this is our path, we're doing that. So I just wonder why.
Well,
what's happening?
I think it's it's any time that you've got that much money on the line, you know what I mean? There's going to be, and things don't perform as well as it should or was hoped from within. I mean, it's just kind of normal. It tends to lead to upheaval.
Feige's just like, my movies are constantly making billions. What about you, Kathleen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to their defense, I mean, their movies still are making a ton of money. The new one did break $1 billion, even though it did not perform anywhere near what Force Awakens did or what they'd hoped. It didn't even match Last Jedi. I don't even think it passed Rogue One. I'm not 100% on that, but it didn't perform exactly. But I mean, it's hard to feel bad when they've broken $1 billion. I
was gonna say, isn't that funny? Like a movie hits $1 billion, but the studio still considers that not performing well.
Yeah,
because they're like, this should have done like close to $2 billion, but it only did like 1.1 or what?
Because it's all based on it's all projections based on potential. Like a known fan base and what have you, but also previous performance. Mm-hmm. So, Star Wars, not just Force Awakens, but even the previous Star Wars films that came out, they performed in certain ways. So those are the expectations, especially now with all the money that they're pouring into, the television shows and the parks. My God, the parks. Yep. So they really want to make sure that, they can't have the franchise regressing. Which is why Bob Iger, I think, came out and said, less is more. So we're going to tone it down. And I think that was his way of getting ahead of it and saying, okay, we need to figure this out.
Right.
We got to figure out some issues that we have here and get the ship righted.
Just keep ordering more Mandalorians.
Yeah. And I honestly, that's why the Obi-Wan delay of any kind, and the big thing that was coming out was that they were having trouble with the script. And that one, Kathleen Kennedy was unhappy with the script, or there were certain people that were unhappy with the script, and that really made me wonder: is that a situation where you have, the one camp who wants to take the show a certain way, and the other who wants, because the big complaint that I read that they were saying was that the rumor was that Kathleen Kennedy and her kind of her crew felt that it was too similar to The Mandalorian in tone. And that very much speaks to that two camps. Like one camp wants to go kind of the OG Star Wars route and keep it very true to the original canon. Right. The other one wants to do this very kind of progressive, something totally different and new and, whatever. But with all of that, there's rumors, and this was the point I was getting to previously, is that, there is that OG Star Wars camp is looking to turn Star Wars into a Star Wars cinematic universe with the shows and the films and bring everything together alongside the comics, what they're doing in comics. If they do that, it would make all the sense in the world, because Disney pioneered this whole concept, with the MCU. So it would make all the sense in the world for them to go that direction. And my goodness, is there enough material for them to break that out into multiple different directions?
For sure. I know one of the things I want to see in the future is an Old Republic. We've had rumors of that. I'd imagine it's going to come eventually. It's just a matter of time, probably several years from now. But in time.
I honestly think we're going to be, I don't even think it's going to be that far out. I think that they've just got to get some things corrected internally. I think they've got some internal conflicts of creative direction that they're trying to sort out. And I honestly think in the end, this is going to be headed up by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. That's my opinion based on what's going on right now.
God bless them.
And I might be wrong, but that would be, I think, the smartest move on Disney's part would be to just let them take the creative reins and run. And if that happens, especially in the short term, we're going to find out a lot at the Star Wars Celebration coming up later on this year in Anaheim. But if they do let that go, make that happen rather, I think we're going to get a Star Wars cinematic universe and something akin to the Old Republic sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I would definitely love that. But staying in the Star Wars world, we got some cool footage this weekend from old test footage, or a proof of concept rather, that George Lucas shot in 2010 to show networks. This was actually intended to be, it's called Star Wars Underworld. Right. It was intended to be the first live-action Star Wars TV series. LucasFilm had shot it. It's like a 3-minute clip. It's online. If you guys go to YouTube and you search Star Wars Underworld, you'll see it. It's been trending, online for the last week and a half. Anyway, we both watched it.
Yeah.
And it was It's a proof of concept, so you can't say like, oh, it looks horrible, the effects are bad.
Right.
I mean, it's not
about that.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's about just like, this is the vibe of the world we're doing, and it takes place on like ground level of Coruscant, which is really, really cool. But also, for me personally, it was a little off-putting in tone, just because it felt like Blade Runner. I think you mentioned that we were talking earlier, and I'm like, yes, it's just weird, like, because we're not used to seeing. We saw Coruscant like ground level a little bit, and I believe Attack of the Clones was the second prequel.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones, and I think even a little bit of Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, yeah. So it was like that, but this was like more so like Blade Runner.
This was real street level stuff.
Yeah. Like this, they had this flying hovering car. I'm like, oh, is Ryan Gosling gonna get out of that thing?
No doubt.
But I don't know how I'd feel about this. I don't know if I would have liked this to get made. Obviously, it didn't. But I don't know. I think The Mandalorian obviously it's one of my favorite Star Wars things ever now.
Right.
So, I can't say this would have been able to live up to that, or I can't say it wouldn't, because we don't have it. But if I was a gambler, I would bet it probably wouldn't be as good as The Mandalorian, just because The Mandalorian, I love it so much, so dearly. I just think everything about that is so Star Wars and just fun, and, it's just, it brings out the OG Star Wars lovers. You can just tell that Favreau and Filoni love Star Wars, and they put their heart into that. So, it is what it is. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I'm pretty much right in line with you. I think that because it was definitely extremely Blade Runner. I wondered, but it sounds like well, he did that before 2049.
Yeah, he did.
So it kind of had a vibe of like, I wonder if he was trying to go a Blade Runner-ish type style with it and merge that with Star. He was clearly definitely trying to do something very different with Star Wars, George Lucas, that is. So that I think is really cool to find out, that he was trying to do something really different. There's not a lot of context as far as like what it was about, like what were, and again, like you said, it's not about quality, because this was a proof of concept. So there's no, there's no real, production value. I mean, there's a little bit. It's not crazy bad, but obviously it's not what it would have been. This was just to show a studio so that they could actually produce the actual piece. But the other thing too is that without knowing who are these characters, what are they trying to do? What's the overall storyline? It's really hard to say much about it one way or the other, outside of, I just think it was really cool that George Lucas was trying to do something that different. I know what you mean when you say that it's a little bit off-putting, because it was a very different style of sci-fi than we're used to with a Star Wars film. But at the same time, I kind of dig that, to see, because I would have loved to have seen. I would love to see what like a thriving Coruscant would look like on the ground level, that's run and kind of overseen, with the Jedi being, kind of the police, the peacekeepers, and almost acting like cops.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would potentially, and you could have like different mysteries involved and stuff, like almost like detective stories.
No, Star Wars Underworld, just the name alone just tells you that it's kind of going to be like that, deal with all the crime and stuff, of course, on like real gritty ground level.
Yeah.
What I found interesting about it, I was reading the article a little bit about it, and the technology they used was actually, it was rendering the VFX in real time. So, and this is back in 2010. So I know nowadays, it's a little more common, but this is 2010. So if you watch the behind the scenes for that,
10 years ago,
yeah,
that's impressive.
So if you watch the behind the scenes for that, there's everything you're looking at. The only thing that's real is like one set and then the actors. Everything else is just an entire green screen room.
Wow.
So all the background, the car, all the lights, all that stuff, it's all being rendered in real time. So they're actually, you see them on the monitors watching what the world looks like as the actor is in front of the camera on the green screen. So I was like, that's pretty impressive considering this is, 2010, but it just shows you George Lucas, ILM, Star Wars. He's like, of course, I own both. Of course I'm going to use this for my own TV show. So I just thought, and I'm also kind of curious if we know the show didn't get picked up, but I'm wondering if that technology is the same technology that advanced into what we know now.
Probably. George Lucas, like James Cameron, he was James Cameron before James Cameron. George Lucas has always been at the forefront of technology, especially visual effects in film. He's one of the pioneers as a director, as a writer. He's always been looking to take his creative visions and then see, how do we do that? How do we create new technologies? How do we push the envelope and do something that no one's ever done? And that's how ILM came to be, was, just that very concept. And the team, the creative team, the visual effects team they have over there at ILM, but also just Lucasfilm in general, the creative teams, the two of them combined, they are second to no one. They're responsible for half of the visual effects, at least, that we see, on screen. And so, Doug Chang and all those guys over there, I mean, they're just amazing, amazing creative minds. And I would not be surprised at all if that was kind of the first iteration of that technology and they were kind of helming it.
I believe that ILM is also the company that came up with the real-time de-aging for the Irishman. Probably. If I remember correctly, which that's, not to go off topic, but that's a crazy story in itself where for the Irishman, because I do believe it's ILM, so it's kind of relevant to what we're talking. But apparently, like De Niro and Al Pacino and stuff, they, they're the kind of actors that they're not blockbuster actors in the sense of like these big superhero, like flashy movies. So they didn't want dots in like all this crap on their face, like, Mark Ruffalo or Andy Serkis in these spandex suits so the cameras could track them. So they had to invent technology that could in real time track their face and de-age them just like that. There's like a whole bit on like Netflix YouTube channel that explains it. But I'm like, that's pretty fascinating, if you will.
Yeah, that stuff is always so fun to learn how they did it, because the stuff that I know, the behind the scenes clips that you're talking about, where they're asking Scorsese, and Scorsese is the one he's just like, yeah, because he wanted to do this for a really long time. And once everybody got older, he was like, yeah, I don't want to, I can't do the dots. Yeah. And nobody's going to be able to take anybody serious. This is not that kind of a movie. You know what I mean? These aren't superheroes, flying, people pretending to be, an Asgardian. So, and I totally understand it. I can't even imagine trying to shoot dramatic scenes like the ones we see in The Irishman with someone in a mocap suit, like dots all over their face or whatever. That would just be insane. But yeah, it's always fascinating to see how and why technologies take the next big leap. And it's almost always consistently, especially when filmmaking is concerned, it always stems from some creator saying, I need this. How do we do it? And it just pushes these technological geniuses to go, I don't know. Let me figure that out. And under pressure, they just go and they figure out how to do it. And it's always remarkable.
It's speaking of technology, though, that leads us into our next bit of news, which this is everything I wanted as a kid. I'm going to enjoy it as an adult. But if like 12-year-old Arris would be like, what is happening to my world right now? Again, like 32-year-old Arris, that's probably still going to happen. But you get the point.
Let's not pretend.
You get the point. What I'm talking about is the new Marvel Land or Avengers Land. I believe it's called Avengers Campus. Yeah. In Disneyland in California, in Avengers Campus, Disney just announced and showed a little clip on their Disneyland Resort video on YouTube that we're going to be having an animatronic, like super close to life, like Spider-Man, web slinging over guests at the park.
Right.
Like, they didn't say how often, but I would imagine probably like once an hour or something like that. The clock rings. It's like, oh, everyone look up, it's Spider-Man swinging. But if you guys want to see the video, just go to Disney Resort on YouTube, type in like Spider-Man animatronic. It's a life-size Spider-Man. I don't know how many of you guys remember, but I believe a year or two now, Disney showed us all a video of them working on an animatronic, like doing acrobatic tricks,
right?
Like in trapeze stuff.
Yeah, like 2 years ago.
Yeah. This is that, essentially. It's basically, it seems like that was because they were working to get to this.
Yes.
So now they're actually going to start implementing this technology into the parks, and we're going to be having a lifelike Spider-Man web slinging over guests in Disneyland. That's insane.
It's just crazy. I remember a couple of years ago when they released that footage, and everybody was asking, wow, that's crazy. but what are they doing that for?
Right.
Like why are the Disney Imagineers like in some random spot with like a gymnast or a trapeze set up, flipping around with this animatronic who can just fly through the air. And now to find out years later that they were developing a new technology so that they can have Spider-Man freaking web slinging over top of the new Marvel land is just first awesome, but also just incredible at how much planning and how much work
ridiculous
they're putting into creating these immersive experiences where you can go and step into these worlds and feel like you're actually in it. Like what we experienced at Galaxy's Edge and the new Rise of the Resistance, and seeing that and going, holy crap, like the amount of work and planning and detail, the new technologies, it's just insane. So I can't,
like, the logistics, like, for those of you watching on our Variant the Podcast YouTube channel, we'll show you the clip, but if you're listening on another platform, you got to Google it. But it's just crazy, like, the logistics of it, because it's essentially like a mannequin animatronic hybrid thing, right?
Yes.
That, like, when you watch it, you see Spider-Man, he actually bends his legs, he puts his hand out, like he's like slinging web and stuff like that. But like when we saw the original video, like 2 years ago, they basically launched it like a catapult. It's a catapult system, and then they, launch it from point A to point B and it lands in a net. So I'm like, do they have like a more advanced version of that in the park now? So that they're launching it from one side of like the park to like the other side, and it's landing, and then they reset it intermittently, like, for every new time slot or whatnot.
It has to be the exact same idea where it gets launched. And because you saw in the original video, way back when, that they were programming this robot, this animatronic, that to do certain movements while in air.
Mm-hmm.
So now it just clearly they were just developing that and working on the original iteration. So they've just literally developed a robot
so cool
that they can program. They can launch into the air, and it's programmed to do certain movements over certain time intervals, while it's suspended while in the air.
Cool.
And so to see it like doing like Spider-Man, like perfect Spider-Man, like web slinging moves in air, it's like, dude, that's insane.
And because it's Disney, they go all out. So I can't imagine this. They're not gonna do this. They're gonna like have it time synced to Tom Holland's Spider-Man voice somehow, where he's like, "Hey guys," like as he's freaking slewing.
Oh my god, dude! If they do that, I'll be right there with you as a full-blown 12-year-old going, "No way!"
It's just the coolest thing. But it's also kind of like technology is just gonna put everyone out of business, because I know the stunt community was kind of like, "Oh, great." Eventually, they're not going to need us anymore if they have animatronics who can do this perfectly.
Well, let me tell you something. We've got robots and animatronics that can do fight scenes, full on fight scenes, and it looks realistic. We got a separate problem on our hands, dude.
We got Judgment Day coming.
Yeah, it's freaking Terminator.
But that's our last bit of news we have today. But
there wasn't that much. There wasn't that much news at all.
Shockingly, no. I actually went to check online to see if there was anything I was missing, and there was nothing really too pressing this week.
Yeah, I was looking around too to see if it was anything, and it was just nothing. I know we got Birds of Prey coming up.
We do.
We're gonna have our review for that this week, as well as some additional episodes for Birds of Prey,
which is actually getting early screenings are getting very positive reviews.
Surprisingly good reviews. Now, do we have a Rotten Tomatoes score yet?
We don't. Now it's time to shoot this video. No.
So as of right now, we don't. It comes out in the next couple of days, but we don't have a Rotten Tomatoes score, which that can sometimes not be the best of
questionable.
Signs. Yeah. But it's maybe not. But it is getting, positive or semi-positive reviews from what we've heard so far. So hopefully it's better. It comes out, it's pretty decent. We're going to be seeing it here in the next day or two, and we'll be right back to tell you what we think about it.
I got my fingers crossed, but I'm not trying to get my hopes up. Everyone knows Harley Quinn's like one of my favorite comic book characters, so I'm like, please, please.
If it's at least entertaining, at the bare minimum, I'll be happy with that. I'll be satisfied.
Yeah.
That with just being entertaining.
It's got to be better than Suicide Squad, right?
Yeah. I mean, different.
No, I'm not even trying to hit on it. I'm actually one of the few people who don't mind Suicide Squad. I know that's likes to get trashed a lot, but I there's some parts in there I do enjoy.
Yeah, it definitely had its parts for sure. I think it was just one of those things like we've talked about so many times. Like, well, what? Where does this go?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of everything, but we'll see it, and hopefully it's better than better than our anticipation.
But before we go, Super Bowl, real quick.
Oh yes,
we watched it.
Yeah, did you enjoy it?
I mean, I'm a New York Giants fan.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, yeah, I don't care who wins. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
to me.
I'm a Dolphin fan, lifelong. So I wear brown bag over my head for most of the football season. But I feel like that's going to change soon. But yeah, I'm a football fan in general. So this was just really entertaining, and to see Patrick Mahomes get and also Andy Reid. To see him finally get his Super Bowl ring, and but Patrick Mahomes is a beast. He's an absolute beast. So it was just really fun to watch. He's 24, dude.
That's insane.
And he won. Not only did he get his first Super Bowl ring, a championship, he was MVP. So he was MVP last year of the league.
That's insane.
And then this year he's Super Bowl MVP. At such a young age, so incredible.
Yeah,
man.
MVP of the league last year, MVP for the Super Bowl this year, a Super Bowl ring, and then probably like a $10 million bonus.
Yeah, really. And it is so cool. I'm really happy for him because he's also seems like a genuinely cool young guy. Just a real positive young guy. He does. I mean, we heard there's a story that came out just before the Super Bowl about how he went into a restaurant to eat, and he was in a hurry or whatever. And the people that were there, they didn't bother him, and they let him eat his dinners. They didn't just kind of swarm him for autographs.
Yeah.
And he was really grateful. So on his way out the door, he paid for everybody's dinner in the restaurant.
Oh my God.
Just to say thank you for letting him just sit down and have a meal. And he's just that kind of a guy. He's at 24 to see the respect that his teammates have for him, just to be a really positive leader at that age, especially after this past couple of weeks where we lost Kobe Bryant, who was also a very positive role model in the athletic world. He seems like he's going to be in that vein, just a very positive role model. So I was really happy to see him and not Tom Brady.
Yeah. Dude, can we just talk about it for a second? Like, to be the guy who could just walk into like a Chili's and be like, I'm paying for everyone's meal, and just charge like, what is that? It's got to be like $5,000 or something like that.
Right.
Like, boom, done, and not even think about
just throw it on the card.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's like kind of a dream, right? It's like to be able to do that for people. I mean, that's a really cool thing. But not everyone does.
No.
And that's the point. The fact that he's a kind of, at such a young age, is already the kind of person that looks to do that kind of thing for people.
Not to keep talking about sports before we wrap up here, but going on that being generous, Shaquille O'Neal was actually at a Best Buy this following week, and someone went to wish him condolences, for Kobe Bryant, because they were that was his little brother,
right?
But Shaq was so appreciative of that. He's like, you know what? I see you're buying a laptop. Pick any laptop in the store you want. Pick the most expensive one. I'm gonna buy it. And he bought him a laptop.
Wow.
Just because he wished him, he gave him his like condolences about losing his friend. How crazy is that?
It's pretty awesome.
I hear a lot of good stories. Apparently Shaq is like a really good tipper.
Guy.
He's been a guy to be like, how much you want your tip to be? And like he literally lets the waiter or waitress say, how long. I want to be that guy, Tim.
Me too, man. I'm with you. Yeah. It was sad actually to see how much the death of Kobe really impacted Shaq.
I got choked up watching the video.
I did too. He's been around a long time. I grew up watching him, and he's not that guy that just breaks down crying, or he's not an emotional type of guy like that. He's just he likes to laugh and have fun and all that kind of thing. So to see him not just break down in tears, but also just get real vulnerable and as far as what he was saying, and open up and say, this has really made me rethink everything about my life and how I do things and how I reach out to it. It was both sad but also inspiring to see someone really take something hard and to say I want to learn as much from this as I can,
right,
so that I can be better for those around me. So just that was cool. So that doesn't surprise me to hear from him, because he's kind of notoriously generous and kind, but also some of that is probably from him just trying to say, like, I just want to be, this inspires me to be better. For
sure. But on that note, that brings today's podcast to an end.
And next week we're gonna have like last week, we're gonna be doing something more themed.
For sure.
We don't know what it is yet, but it'll be a surprise.
But it's something.
It's gonna be something. Oh, and it's gonna be awesome.
But we'll see you guys next week when we talk about all things comics.